Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another live stream. So, before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Excuse me. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking. All right. So, shouts out to everybody that comes to the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, you guys already know what to do. Make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Also, make sure that you smash that like button. All right. Also, make sure that you share the video out to your various social media platforms and tell a friend. All right. So, we got another edition of Auditing Africa. And what we're going to be talking about today is a situation where there are some shady things going on with people from Rwanda and the airlines in the UK. All right. This is an article from The Independent, and it says new asylum seekers still being locked up for removal to Rwanda despite questions over legality of the policy. Now, that's interesting because clearly they haven't figured out whether this policy that they're executing is legal or illegal, but they're still acting on it, and they're also still just taking people, asylum seekers, back to Rwanda. All right. So now here it says exclusive ministers accused of being untethered from any sense of morality or legality as government continues to detain people under policy that may be ruled unlawful next month. All right. So let's check this out and see exactly what this is talking about here.
What I see in process in Al Ula is an extremely progressive, forward-looking relationship to art and artists and the role that art can play in one's experience. When I got there, what I experienced was one of, if not the most beautiful desert environment I've ever seen. There are in excess of 100 tombs carved directly into rock, and they are absolutely extraordinary. There's nothing that prepares you for that. There's no single picture or film that prepares you for it. This was a crossroads, and one of the major crossroads of civilization and economies in the history of the world. This is, in all likelihood, the largest territory in the world of under-examined, very significant archaeological sites, and certainly of this many layers of culture. One could say that what is there is so rich and extensive, why is there even a need for or a place for contemporary art there? Art often gives us permission to look beyond our knowledge and assumptions. What I have found in my work in the past is that if you provide artists with an extraordinary environment, unlike ones in which they have found themselves before, and a set of conditions by which to consider how art can exist, therein you have the conditions that can result in something truly extraordinary.
Now, that's fascinating. And what I find the most fascinating about that is that that literally had absolutely nothing to do with the article. So now let's get into this article. It says new asylum seekers are being locked up in order to be deported to Rwanda, even after the court challenges raised questions about whether the controversial removal flights would. Uh-oh, what just happened here? Let's go back. Okay, here we go. Even though the court challenges raised questions about whether the controversial removal flights would ever be able to begin. So that's interesting. So they did this without even getting permission from their own legal system. So now here it says campaigners accused ministers of being untethered from any sense of morality or legality after it emerged that people seeking refuge in Britain had been placed in detention centers following the grounding of last week's planned flight. Okay. The Rwanda policy will be subject to a judicial review on July 18th, where a high court judge will assess whether it is lawful. On Wednesday, the most senior civil servant in the Home Office admitted that the policy may even fail in its stated aim of deterring migrants from attempting the dangerous journey across the channel by small boat. So now this is interesting because I don't know if anybody knows what the situation in the UK is, but there are a lot of asylum seekers. Shouts out to my man Carlton Way. What's good with it, bro? What's going on with you? And the UK is making a special effort to specifically block Africans from being migrants using the airline. And what I find interesting about this is, to me, especially as pro asylum, quote unquote, as the United States is, you don't see anything about this kind of situation or anything like this in the mainstream media. And to me, this is a blatant act of global anti-black racism. My man Carlton Way agrees. He says, "Yep, yeah, bro. This is crazy. You know what I'm saying? This is really wild how they doing over here." So now here it says it comes as Boris Johnson flew to Rwanda to attend a Commonwealth summit. He is set to meet Prince Charles in Kigali for the first time since it was revealed that the heir to the throne had described the deportation plan as appalling in private remarks. Now, this is interesting because I don't understand why they're talking about it in private talks, private remarks. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says the first planned flight in support of the policy under which the government hopes to, quote, relocate asylum seekers to the Central African country in a bid to deter them from using small boats to cross the channel was thwarted last week following an intervention by the European Court of Human Rights. Isn't that interesting? The European Court of Human Rights not out here treating people like they're human. My man Carlton says they say too many Africans in Europe. Yeah, that's what it's looking like. That's what it's looking like the sentiment is. The first planned flight in support of the policy under which the government hopes to relocate asylum seekers to the Central African country in a bid to deter them from using small boats to cross the channel was thwarted last week following an intervention by the European Court of Human Rights. A total of 979 people have crossed the channel since the flight was canceled at the last minute, according to Home Office data. The government had detained around 130 asylum seekers ahead of the flight, but only issued removal tickets to 47 of them. The majority of the 130 are thought to remain in detention, and detainees are only being released upon submitting a successful bail application to the court. Now, I'd be interested to see what is actually a requirement on this bail application. And another question that I have is, yo, shouts out to my man over there on Facebook. Come check out Auditing Africa on YouTube. What I'm curious about is, how is it, what are the criteria of this? What are the criteria of these detainee orders, and how do you get a successful bail? How does that work? So now here it says, despite no further flights being scheduled at this stage, new asylum seekers have continued to be detained and informed that they may be removed to Rwanda. See that? So they're just deporting these people back to Rwanda. Very interesting than the way the United States is treating the Ukrainian immigrants. So pay very close attention to that. The Independent is aware of at least 18 such cases. Claire Mosley, founder of Care for Callus, said the charity was in touch with a number of people in this situation. She said the government is plowing ahead with this plan while totally ignoring human consequences. I imagine it just wants to deport some people as soon as possible. They don't care how they do it, but they want the headline. I think they're hedging for their bets. Steve Crenshaw, director of policy and advocacy at Freedom from Torture, said it was deeply disturbing that the government was continuing to detain refugees and threaten them with removal to Rwanda. All right. So that's what's going on over there. And what I find fascinating about this entire thing is, again, you're not hearing anything about this in the American mainstream media. You really don't hear too much about this in the global media. So now here it says, we know from our work with torture survivors how traumatizing the experience of detention can be. Given the ECHR's ruling blocked removals until outstanding legal challenges can be heard, this seems to be a cruel attempt to intimidate vulnerable people by a government untethered from any sense of morality, he said. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. That sounds exactly like what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Shouts out to my man Bronze the God. What up with it, bro? So now here it says Bella Sankey, director of detention action, said if the government had any respect for our legal system, it would stop issuing notices of intent until our courts have determined whether or not it's lawful to expel asylum seekers to Rwanda. So I want you guys to make sure that you understand what's being said here. I want you guys to make sure that you guys understand the situation. Shouts out to my man U-Law. What's up with it? And real quick, y'all, make sure y'all bang on that like button. You know what I'm saying? So what's going on here is that the UK government is utilizing this airline to unlawfully remove Rwandan asylum seekers and send them back to Rwanda without any due process. Without any due process. And people are looking at this and seeing this as a human rights violation. And there's supposed to be a court date that determines whether this is legal versus not. And it doesn't matter. It's just business as usual. The UK government is just continuing to do what it does. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, we got, excuse me, 4 people watching and we got 2 likes. If everybody smashes that like button, we'll be at 6 likes. Shouts out to my man DJ Elmo. What up with it, bro? So now here it says, it comes as a new analysis undertaken by the Oxford Migration Observatory shows that 9 in every 10 people who were refused asylum in Britain 2 years ago were free to remain in the country, according to The Guardian, fueling concern that the Rwanda policy fails to address fundamental problems in the asylum system, such as removals. Speaking to the Home Affairs Select Committee on Wednesday morning, Home Office Permanent Secretary Matthew Roycroft acknowledged that the Rwanda plan could lead to riskier channel crossings being attempted or a move back to the clandestine arrivals in the backs of lorries. After agreeing that it could pose these risks, he added, it would be a euphoric victory if this set policies were successful in closing down the small boat route, but created something even more dangerous. That would not be a victory at all. So we need to make sure we're thinking about this in the round. A Home Office spokesperson said where it is necessary to secure their removal, we will keep people in detention. But if a court orders that an individual due to be on that Tuesday's flight should be released on bail, we will tag them where appropriate. Our world-leading and innovative migration partnership with Rwanda will ensure those making dangerous journeys to the UK are relocated to Rwanda to rebuild a new life there. Now, isn't that nice of them? They're very concerned about them getting out of the UK and rebuilding their life in Rwanda. Yeah, I agree. My man Carlton says the UK are the OG white supremacists, and I totally agree with that. If you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. So there's another article that goes with this, and we're going to check it out real quick. Let me see. Just these articles from the Independent, man, they're difficult because they load really weird. You know what I'm saying? So this article here actually talks about the asylum seekers and talks about how they were unlawfully locked up. Now, I got a question for you guys. How many of you guys have heard about this situation in Rwanda? If you guys heard about this situation in Rwanda, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't ever heard about this situation in Rwanda, give me a thumbs down. All right. So now here it says they're keeping me here like a criminal. Asylum seekers still locked up after failed Rwanda flight. So they're really, really out there in the UK violating human rights. They really have some severe human rights violations popping off over there, unchecked. Ministers accused of subjecting vulnerable people to cruel experiment. All right. And this is something that just popped up. You know what I mean? This article was posted 2 days ago. You know what I'm saying? So now what I find the most interesting is that when it comes to this situation here, if you read a lot of the comment sections, pay very close attention to the non-black people in the comment section. It's go back to Africa. Britain doesn't look like Britain anymore. The UK is being erased. It's interesting. But when it comes to the United States, there's a lot of sympathy for the Ukrainians. And so I want to ask you guys, why do you guys feel that that contrast exists? Because that contrast is there. It's not something that's arguable. We can't sit there and say, well, oh, you know, those are two situations that are unrelated. No, we're talking about people who are gaining asylum. It's very similar situations, different countries, but very similar situations. Similar response from the public and also similar response from the government. You know what I'm saying? So now here it says asylum seekers detained for removal to Rwanda weeks ago are still being held in detention despite the last-minute grounding of the flight, which legal experts say leaves the government wide open to litigation and aggravated damage claims. Ministers have been accused of subjecting vulnerable people to a cruel experiment after it emerged that a vast majority of people who the Home Office had hoped to deport in East Africa, most of whom were not even given tickets for the flight, remain locked up. So they didn't even take these people back home. They got them still locked up. So this is just showing that they just do whatever they want. DJ Elmo says, Blacklight, the Ukraine refugees are welcome to the UK with no opposition. So it's a race-based policy. That's a fact. Now, I got a question. Other than race, what's the difference between these people from Rwanda and these people from the UK? Other than race, what's different? In my opinion, one of the things that's extremely different is that the UK has contributed to all of the chaos across the continent of Africa. So, in my opinion, if anybody is welcoming any refugees, the UK should be welcoming the refugees that is partially responsible for making. If you guys agree with me, give me a thumbs up in the comment section. If you disagree, give me a thumbs down. So now here it says, this is despite the fact that there is no further flight planned at this stage, meaning there is no imminent prospect of removal, which lawyers say makes their continued detention potentially unlawful. A small number of the approximately 130 people originally detained for removal under the new policy have been released in recent days after applying for bail, with the specialist immigration court indicating that bail judges believe this cohort should be released. But bail applications, look at this, bail applications can be a timely process and usually require detainees to have legal representation. So remember when I was asking about the requirements of the bail? Clearly, shouts out to my man Terrence Jackson, shouts out to my man Jay Bird. What up with it? So clearly, guys, there's some issues here. These people need to have resources in order to utilize these bail applications. This is unlawful. In my opinion, this is a human rights violation. And what I find even more interesting is I don't understand why we're not hearing from the Rwandan government about this. Now, that's interesting. DJ Elmo says the people that are sent to Rwanda are not Rwandan. They are from other nations like Iran and Afghanistan. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Why would that be? And why are they sending them back to Rwanda? And why is Rwanda okay with that? Why is Rwanda being a dumping ground for non-Rwandans? Does that make any sense? So now here it says asylum seekers who remain in detention have told The Independent they feel as though they are being treated like criminals after being held for weeks without being any indication as to when they would be released. Legal experts describe the Home Office's decision to hold people in detention as outrageous behavior and warned that it could lead to ministers facing a spate of unlawful detention claims. Pierre Mackhoff, legal director at Bail for Immigration Detainees, which is representing 15 asylum seekers applying for bail applications, said many such people have strong claims for immigration bail and claims, and that their continued detention would be unlawful. Now, here's the problematic thing. They didn't even put this through court yet. They didn't even put this through court yet. This is, again, I just want to reiterate that this is something that the government is doing on its own, guys. The government just took its own liberty to just go ahead and do this. We're just going to do this. This is how we're going to handle this issue. And real quick, ladies and gentlemen, we got 6 people watching. Shouts out to all 6 that are watching. We got 4 likes. If y'all could smash that like button and help us get to 10, that would be dope. So now here it says, he added, the government is detaining people who cannot be removed quickly to Rwanda because of outstanding litigation. It is evading basic common law duties to act fairly, to publish policies, or to assess appropriateness of detaining people depending on their individual circumstances. Unnecessary detention, particularly of vulnerable people, is degrading and it can be harmful. The blanket approach, combined with total disregard for any procedural fairness, leaves the government wide open to litigation and to aggravated damages claims. One Afghan man, and this is what DJ Elmo was talking about, one Afghan man who did not wish to be named has been in Brookhouse Removal Center for 5 weeks after being issued with a notice of intent in mid-May. He was not among those given a ticket for the Rwanda flight last week and doesn't understand why he is still being held in detention. Now, here's my question, and this question is for everybody that's watching. Would there be any justifiable reason why any of these people would remain in custody? And if there is a justifiable reason, why don't you guys give it to me in the comments? What is the reason why any of these people would remain in custody? DJ Elmo says the policy was approved by Parliament with the clause to ship refugees to Rwanda. It doesn't need to go to court until a legal challenge. So now because people are challenging it, that's the reason why it's getting some attention and it may go to court. But before, they had just wrote the law and the law was just the law. I got it. The Home Office is not telling me anything. I don't know why they are keeping me here like a criminal. I feel sick about it. Every day, I'm thinking about when I get released. I want to go home to Birmingham to be with my cousin and my uncle. Lots of family and friends. I lived there before, he told The Independent. No one is relaxed here. We should be able to get out. There's lots of stress here. It's very difficult. Some people have been released, but everybody here is still worried about what happens next. Karen Doyle from campaign group Movement for Justice compared the decision to keep people detained as an awful waiting game, a cruel experiment on human beings. She added, the government doesn't know if it can make this Rwanda policy work, but are prepared to subject refugees to the torture of indefinite detention anyway. So now here's my question for you guys. What if this does turn out to be an indefinite detention situation? And when they say indefinite detention, what do they mean? And again, I'm still trying to figure out why they're sending these non-Rwandans back to Rwanda. That's kind of weird to me. So now here it says a Home Office spokesperson refused to comment on the number of asylum seekers being held in detention, but said, where it is necessary to secure their removal, we will keep people in detention. But if a court orders that an individual due to be on Tuesday's flight should be released on bail, we will tag them where appropriate. our world-leading and innovative migration partnership with Rwanda will ensure those making dangerous journeys to the UK are relocated to Rwanda to build a new life there. All right. So that's the end of that. All right. That's the end of that. The situation in the UK with them deporting asylum seekers to Rwanda. So now I still don't quite understand why it is that they're sending them to Rwanda. Does that make sense? Carlton says indefinite detention sounds like they will be locked up forever. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like they'll be locked up forever with no foreseeable, no foreseeable release date, no foreseeable court resolution. Basically, like what they say back in the day, as far as like, quote, keeping somebody on ice. That's what it seems like. And I'm curious as to what kind of rights those people have to kind of protect them from it. You know what I'm saying? My man DJ Elmo says Blacklight, they're being held because it's profitable. Sounds a lot like our prison industrial system here. You know what I'm saying? So that is today's audit of Africa. A lot of things can be said about this situation. I learned a lot from this situation. The first situation is I haven't heard anything from the Rwandan government about this. That's what I noticed immediately. The second thing that I noticed immediately is no coverage from the mainstream media. The third thing that I noticed is that it seems like there's people who are not from Rwanda being deported back to Rwanda. My question about all of those things is why? And there's even more questions that we can ask. There's an airline and probably a lot of airlines and airports and air traffic control agencies that are complicit with this when this is clearly bordering on unethical. So if it wasn't for this article from Independent, I wouldn't have heard too much about this. DJ Elmo says, Blacklights, you heard of the UK Windrush scandal? No, I never heard of the Windrush scandal. I'm going to have to look into it, though. Definitely going to have to look into it. We may have to mess around and do an Auditing Africa video about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, players and pimps, that is the end of today's Auditing Africa stream. All right. Leave your boy some comments after the stream. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you guys hear any more information or follow up about this, y'all know how to reach me. Hit the about page. Also, hit the description box for my socials. Shoot me the information. Your boy will check it out. We will get a live stream up and discuss it because I think this is interesting. And we always got to make sure that we're auditing Africa, nigga. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I will catch you all on the next video. All right. Peace.